My beloved child. There are moments that seem ordinary to the world, yet all of heaven grows silent because one decision has the power to redirect countless tomorrows. This is one of those moments. Someone whose heart has never truly released your name has reached a crossroads they can no longer avoid. For a long time, they stood between fear and faith, between what they felt and what they believed was possible. Every sunrise asked them the same question. Every sleepless night returned with the same answer hidden beneath their silence. What you could not see was the battle unfolding where no eyes could witness it. While life appeared to move forward on the surface, another story was quietly being written beneath it, one that involved your name far more than you realize. Have you ever wondered why certain connections refuse to disappear, even after distance, silence, or misunderstanding? Why does one soul continue carrying another through seasons that should have erased every memory? The answer is closer than you think. Not every separation is the end of a story. Sometimes it is the place where hidden transformation begins. There were countless opportunities for this person to convince themselves that forgetting you would be easier. Friends offered advice. Circumstances whispered excuses. Time itself tried to persuade them that moving on was the wiser path. Yet every attempt left an unexpected emptiness. Because some names become more than memories. They become reminders. Every familiar song carried an echo they could not explain. Every unexpected coincidence interrupted the life they were trying to build without you. Even moments of laughter ended with a quiet question they never dared speak aloud. Why can't I stop thinking about them? The world interpreted their silence as indifference. Heaven recognized it as surrender happening one layer at a time. There is a difference. Silence is not always the absence of feeling. Sometimes silence is where the deepest decisions are made. That is why you have sensed unusual shifts within yourself lately. Perhaps your heart has felt restless without understanding why. Perhaps peace has arrived in unexpected moments, only to be followed by questions that seem to appear from nowhere. Those moments were not meaningless. They were gentle reminders that unseen things are moving long before visible changes arrive. Do not mistake delay for abandonment. A seed hidden beneath the soil appears lifeless until the day it suddenly breaks through the ground. Yet its greatest growth happened where no one was watching. So has this story. While you focused on healing, learning, and becoming stronger, another journey unfolded beyond your awareness. The one still carrying your name discovered something impossible to ignore. They realized that running from what they truly felt required more energy than facing it. That realization did not arrive all at once. It came through quiet disappointments. Through prayers they never admitted they whispered. Through conversations they replayed long after everyone else had forgotten them. Through moments when your memory appeared without invitation, refusing to leave. Little by little, the walls around their heart began to crack. Not because someone forced them. Because truth has a way of patiently outlasting fear. Even now, they are beginning to understand something that once frightened them. Love built upon honesty cannot remain hidden forever. But before that understanding could become action, another unexpected event unfolded. It happened so quietly that almost no one noticed. A single conversation. A single realization. A single moment that separated the life they had been living, from the life they suddenly imagined. Everything shifted there. That was the exact moment they made a decision powerful enough to change the direction of everything that follows. But what they decided, and why your name became the center of that decision, is something you are only beginning to uncover. Because the choice they made did not end the story. It became the first step towards something neither of you expected. There is something remarkable about the moment a heart finally stops arguing with the truth. It does not happen with thunder or applause. It happens in stillness, in the quiet place where excuses lose their strength and honesty becomes impossible to ignore. That is where this story now continues. The one still carrying your name reached a point where pretending no longer felt safe. They had spent so much time convincing themselves that circumstances were stronger than what they carried inside. They believed distance would erase the connection. They assumed silence would eventually become peace. Instead, silence became a mirror. Every day reflected the same unanswered question. What if I have been walking away from something heaven never asked me to abandon? That question refused to leave them. They tried distracting themselves with responsibilities. They buried themselves in routines. They smiled when expected, spoke when necessary, and continued moving through life as though nothing unusual was happening. Yet beneath every ordinary moment, something extraordinary was unfolding. The weight of your name was no longer something they carried unwillingly. It had become something they could no longer deny. There are seasons when people mistake comfort for purpose. They stay where everything feels familiar, even when their spirit quietly longs for more. But eventually, there comes a day when remaining the same becomes more painful than embracing change. That day arrived for them. Without warning, they began looking at their life through different eyes. The plans they once defended no longer brought peace. The future they once imagined suddenly felt incomplete. The answers they thought they wanted began losing their meaning. And through all of it, one thought continued returning. Not as pressure. Not as fear. But as quiet clarity. Your name. This was not because every memory was perfect. They remembered the misunderstandings. They remembered the unanswered questions. They remembered moments that left both hearts uncertain. Yet something greater than regret began replacing those memories. Understanding. For the first time, they stopped asking, who was right? Instead, they began asking, what have I learned? That single change transformed everything. Growth often begins when the desire to protect pride becomes smaller than the desire to protect what truly matters. That is exactly what happened. The walls they spent so long building started becoming doors. Not because someone forced them open. Because they finally understood that love cannot flourish behind locked gates. As heaven watched this quiet transformation, another realization settled deeply within their heart. They could no longer keep postponing the life they secretly hoped for. Every delay felt heavier. Every excuse sounded weaker. Every passing day reminded them that time is precious, and opportunities are gifts that should never be taken for granted. So they did something they never imagined themselves doing. They stopped making decisions based only on fear. Instead, they began making decisions based on who they were becoming. That is a turning point many people never reach. Because changing your circumstances is difficult. Changing your heart is even harder. And yet, that is exactly where they found themselves. The person who once hesitated now found courage quietly replacing uncertainty. The person who once questioned everything began trusting that some answers only appear after the first faithful step is taken. They did not have every detail. They did not know exactly how everything would unfold. But they knew one thing with absolute certainty. They could no longer live as though your name meant nothing. And so, a life-changing decision was made. Not out of desperation. Not out of guilt. But from a place of sincerity they had never allowed themselves to reach before. Still, there is one part of that decision no one around them knows. It has remained hidden within their heart, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. And when that hidden part finally comes into the light, it will explain why everything that once seemed delayed suddenly begins moving in a completely different direction. Not every breakthrough announces itself with noise. Some arrive as a whisper so gentle that only a prepared heart can recognize it. This is where the unseen story becomes even more remarkable. After making that life-changing decision, they expected instant certainty. They believed the weight they had been carrying would disappear overnight. Instead, they discovered something unexpected. Peace does not always arrive because every question has been answered. Sometimes peace arrives because a heart has finally chosen honesty. That quiet assurance settled over them like the first light after a long night. For the first time in what felt like forever, they stopped fighting every emotion that reminded them of you. They no longer treated your memory as something to escape. Instead, they allowed themselves to acknowledge what had always been there. Not an obsession. Not a fantasy. But a connection that had continued shaping them, even during seasons of silence. While they were coming to terms with this truth, another change was taking place, one they never anticipated. People around them began noticing the difference. Their words carried a new calm. Their choices reflected greater wisdom. Even their closest companions sensed that something had shifted, though no one could explain what it was. When they were asked, what changed? They simply smiled. Because some transformations cannot be explained with sentences. They can only be lived. There is a reason certain answers are delayed until the heart is ready to receive them. If they had reached this understanding months ago, fear might have caused them to turn away. If they had been given this clarity before their own growth, they might have mistaken it for temporary emotion. But now, everything felt different. Every lesson they once resisted suddenly made sense. Every disappointment they once questioned now appeared to have served a purpose. Even the waiting they had resented began to look less like punishment, and more like preparation. Perhaps you have wondered why your own journey has included unexpected pauses. Why certain doors remained closed. Why answers seemed slower than your prayers. What if those pauses were never empty? What if they were quietly preparing two separate paths to meet at the right moment instead of the fastest one? There is wisdom in timing that cannot always be understood while we are living through it. That wisdom has been guiding this story from the very beginning. The one still carrying your name is beginning to recognize that lasting relationships are not built by rushing toward certainty. They are built by becoming someone capable of protecting what is precious. That realization has changed the way they see the future. No longer are they asking, what is easiest? Now they are asking, what is worthy? That single question has become the compass directing every decision they make. Yet one final obstacle remains. It is not distance. It is not misunderstanding. It is not even the opinions of others. It is the quiet uncertainty that exists before any meaningful step forward. They know they cannot remain where they are. They know the decision they made has already changed them. But they also know that every significant journey requires one courageous moment, the moment when intention becomes action. And that moment is drawing closer than either of you realize. Even now, unseen pieces are falling into place. Conversations that have not yet happened. Opportunities that have not yet appeared. Unexpected moments that will seem ordinary at first, yet later reveal themselves as turning points. Nothing has been wasted. Not the waiting. Not the silence. Not even the tears that only heaven witnessed. Because every chapter has been preparing both hearts for what comes next. And when the first visible sign finally appears, you will understand why this decision could never remain hidden forever. For the choice they made was only the beginning. The next step they are preparing to take will reveal just how deeply your name has continued to shape the future they are now ready to embrace. The greatest moments are rarely recognized while they are unfolding. Only later do we look back and realize that everything changed because one heart finally chose courage over fear. This is where the message reaches its destination. The one who has continued carrying your name has discovered a truth that can no longer be ignored. Love is not measured by how loudly it speaks. It is measured by the quiet choices that remain faithful even when no one is watching. That is the lesson they have been learning through every season of waiting. Every disappointment taught them compassion. Every unanswered question taught them patience. Every moment of silence invited them to become a wiser, kinder, and stronger person than they were before. Now they understand that real change does not begin with finding the perfect moment. It begins with becoming the kind of person who is ready when the moment arrives. That is why their life-changing decision matters. It was not simply a decision about the future. It was a decision about the person they chose to become. They chose honesty over hiding, grace over resentment, hope over fear, and faith over endless uncertainty. Whether your paths meet in expected ways or through surprising turns, never underestimate what quiet growth can accomplish. The work that happens within the heart often prepares blessings that cannot be rushed. So do not allow impatience to convince you that nothing is happening. Do not let temporary silence persuade you that your story has been forgotten. The author of every meaningful journey is never hurried, yet never late. Continue walking with integrity. Continue choosing kindness when bitterness seems easier. Continue protecting your peace while remaining open to hope. The future is not built in a single dramatic moment. It is built through countless faithful choices that no audience ever applauds. One day, you may look back and realize that every delay carried a hidden purpose. Every lesson strengthened your character. Every unexpected turn redirected you toward deeper wisdom. And every unanswered prayer invited you to trust beyond what your eyes could see. If this message has found your heart today, let it remind you of one lasting truth. You are never defined by the chapters that felt uncertain. You are shaped by the hope you choose to carry through them. Walk forward without fear. Release what was never yours to control. Embrace what helps you grow in love, wisdom, and compassion. The story ahead is not written by anxiety. It is written one faithful step at a time. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this journey is not simply that someone still carried your name. It is that both of you were quietly becoming the people you needed to be before the next chapter could begin. Hold on to peace. Choose hope. Keep your heart open to what is good. For every sunrise carries the possibility of a new beginning, and every faithful step becomes part of a greater story still being written. If this message encouraged your spirit, take a quiet moment to reflect on what hope, forgiveness, and courage mean in your own life, and carry those gifts with you into whatever tomorrow brings. May peace guide your heart, wisdom shape your choices, and hope remain your constant companion. This is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of a beautiful new chapter.